The ship was dying, and everyone knew it. The captain stood on the bridge, watching red lights flash across every screen. 3 days ago, the Zelthian war fleet had caught them in open space. The battle lasted less than an hour. Now the human colony ship drifted without power, life support failing, and no help coming. 2,000 colonists filled the lower decks. Families who had sold everything they owned for a chance at a new world. Children who dreamed of alien skies and strange animals. Old people hoping for one more adventure before their time ran out. All of them trapped on a broken ship in the middle of nowhere. The Zelthians had sent a message after the attack. Their terms were simple. The humans would surrender completely. They would give up their ship, their supplies, and their colony rights to the new world. In return, the Zelthians would take them to the nearest station as prisoners. They had 12 hours to decide. Every other species in the galaxy would have accepted immediately. The Zelthians were one of the oldest and strongest civilizations in known space. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and defeated countless enemies. Fighting them was suicide. Refusing them was madness. The captain looked at his crew. Young officers who had never seen real combat. Engineers who worked on cargo haulers before this mission. A doctor who specialized in children's medicine. None of them were soldiers. None of them had signed up for war, but they were human, and that changed everything. The first officer spoke quietly. "We can't win. Even if we get the engines running, they'll just destroy us. We have families on board, children." The captain nodded slowly. The first officer was right about the facts, wrong about the conclusion. "Send a message to all decks," the captain said. "Everyone to the assembly hall in 30 minutes. The assembly hall was the largest room on the ship, built for community gatherings and celebrations. Now it held 2,000 scared people who wanted answers. The captain stood on the small stage and looked at their faces. Some were crying. Others sat in angry silence. Parents held their children close. He told them the truth. The ship was damaged beyond easy repair. The Zelthians wanted surrender. If they refused, everyone would probably die. The smart choice, the logical choice, was to accept the terms and hope for rescue later. Then he told them something else. He told them about Earth, about the history they all learned as children, about the ice ages when early humans should have died but found ways to survive, about the wars that should have ended them but somehow didn't, about the disasters and plagues and impossible situations that should have wiped humanity from existence. Every time, the captain said, every single time, someone said we couldn't make it. Someone said the odds were too bad. Someone said we should give up. And every time, we found a way. A woman stood up in the crowd. She was holding a small boy who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. "Are you saying we should fight? With a broken ship and no weapons? Are you asking us to choose death?" The captain shook his head. "I'm not asking you to choose anything. The Zelthians gave us 12 hours. I'm giving you a vote. We can surrender and live as prisoners. Or we can try something else. What else is there?" Someone shouted from the back. "I don't know yet," the captain admitted. "But I know we have 2,000 people on this ship. 2,000 minds. 2,000 different skills and ideas. Maybe one of us knows something that could help. Maybe if we all work together, we find a chance." The vote took an hour. It wasn't close. 1,700 people chose to try. 300 wanted to surrender. The captain told those 300 they could take the emergency shuttles when the time came. No one would force them to stay. This had to be a choice. The engineering teams went to work immediately. The ship's reactor was dead, but the backup power cells still had some charge. They began rerouting everything, pulling power from non-essential systems. Life support was cut to minimum levels. Lighting went to emergency only. Every bit of energy went toward one goal: getting the main engines working for just a few minutes. The science team had a crazy idea. The Zelfian fleet was holding position 3,000 kilometers away, watching and waiting for the human response. They were confident, relaxed, probably laughing about how easy this conquest had been. They expected either surrender or silence. What if the humans did something completely unexpected? The ship's main computer was damaged but still partially functional. One of the programmers, a young woman who had worked in entertainment before joining the colony mission, suggested they could fake a much stronger power signature. Make the Zelfians think the humans had somehow repaired their weapons and shields. It wouldn't fool them for long. Maybe a few minutes at most. But a few minutes might be enough. The doctor organized medical teams to prepare for casualties. She knew there would be injuries, maybe deaths. She set up emergency stations throughout the ship and made sure everyone knew where to go when things went wrong. The teachers gathered all the children in the most protected section of the ship, deep in the center where the armor was thickest. They told stories and played games, trying to keep the kids calm while the adults worked frantically around them. The captain watched his crew transform from scared colonists into something else. They worked 18 hours straight without complaint. When someone got too tired, another person took their place. When a problem seemed impossible, people gathered around it and found solutions together. This was what other species never understood about humans. It wasn't that humans were stronger or smarter or braver than everyone else. It was that humans had spent their entire history facing impossible situations and somehow surviving them. They had learned how to keep going when everything said they should stop. They had learned how to hope when hope made no logical sense. The Zelfian commander sent another message at the 10-hour mark. He sounded annoyed. The humans were supposed to have answered by now. He wanted to know their decision. Surrender or death. Simple choice. The captain sent back a one-word reply. Wait. The Zelfian commander didn't understand. Wait for what? There was nothing to wait for. The humans had no options, no tricks, no way out. This was over, but he agreed to wait one more hour. He was curious now. What could these primitive newcomers possibly be planning? The captain smiled grimly as he cut the transmission. The commander had just made his first mistake. He had given them time. And humans, when given even a little bit of time, could accomplish remarkable things. The engineering team reported success. They had the engines working. Not at full power, barely at 10%, but working. It would be enough for one quick burn, one chance to move the ship. The programmer activated her fake power signature. Suddenly, the colony ship's sensors showed massive energy readings, as if the weapons and shields had come fully online. It was a lie, a trick, but it looked real enough on Zelfian sensors. The captain looked at his crew one last time. Ready? They nodded. Every one of them. Ready to try something impossible. Ready to fight when fighting made no sense. Ready to be human. Then let's show them what we're made of, the captain said. The Zelfian commander stared at his tactical display in confusion. The human ship's power signature had suddenly jumped to impossible levels. Weapon systems showed as fully active. Defensive shields registered at maximum strength. It made no sense. His ships had disabled that vessel completely. There was no way they could have repaired so much damage in less than 12 hours. His tactical officer suggested it might be a sensor error, some kind of interference from the local asteroid field. The commander ordered a detailed scan. The readings came back the same. The human ship appeared combat-ready and dangerous. For the first time in the engagement, the commander felt uncertain. Humans were new to the galaxy, barely a century since they achieved faster-than-light travel. They shouldn't have technology this advanced. They shouldn't be able to recover from damage so quickly. Yet the sensors didn't lie. He decided to be cautious. He ordered his fleet to move back to a safer distance, 5,000 kilometers instead of 3. Better to take a careful approach than rush into an ambush. The Zelthian Empire hadn't conquered half the galaxy by being reckless. On the human colony ship, the captain watched the enemy fleet retreat and allowed himself a small smile. The trick had worked. The fake power signature had bought them exactly what they needed: distance and confusion. How long until they figure it out? The first officer asked. 10 minutes, the programmer said. Maybe 15 if we're lucky. Their sensors will eventually see through the fake readings. Then we use those 10 minutes, the captain said. Engineering, are we ready? The chief engineer, a gray-haired man who had built ships for 40 years, gave a thumbs up. Engines will fire on your command. But Captain, I have to warn you again. We only have enough power for one burn. After that, we're dead in space for real. One burn is all we need, the captain replied. He opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, prepare for acceleration. Get to your emergency stations. Hold on to something solid. This is going to be rough. The colony ship had been drifting in a slow orbit around the small moon. The Zelthian fleet had positioned themselves between the ship and open space, cutting off any escape route. Standard military tactics. Block the exit and wait for surrender. But the captain wasn't trying to escape into open space. He was aiming for the moon itself. The engines fired with a cough and a roar. The ship lurched forward, accelerating toward the lunar surface at a steep angle. Alarms blared as the sudden movement strained already damaged systems. People throughout the ship grabbed onto railings and seats as artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. The Zelthian commander saw the movement and immediately understood he'd been fooled. The power signature was fake. The humans were running, and they only had enough energy for one desperate maneuver. He ordered his fleet to pursue and finish this quickly. The colony ship dove toward the moon like a falling stone. The surface grew larger in the view screens, gray rock and deep craters rushing up to meet them. The first officer gripped his chair, knuckles white. Captain, we're going to crash. Not quite, the captain said calmly. Trust the navigator. The navigator was a young woman from Mars who had spent her childhood flying racing craft through the canyon systems. She had hands like steel and nerves like ice. She let the ship fall until the Zelthians thought the humans had lost control, then fired the maneuvering thrusters at the last possible second. The colony ship skimmed across the lunar surface, passing between two mountain peaks with less than 50 meters of clearance on either side. The Zelthian warships, much larger and less maneuverable, couldn't follow the same path. They had to go over the mountains, adding precious seconds to their pursuit. Those seconds were enough. The navigator guided the ship into a narrow canyon on the far side of the moon. The canyon walls rose hundreds of meters high, cutting off sensor readings and providing cover from direct weapons fire. The ship settled onto the canyon floor with a grinding crash that threw everyone forward in their seats. Engines are dead, the chief engineer reported. Power cells are empty. We're done flying. Good, the captain said. We were never going to outfly them anyway. Everyone, prepare for ground operations. The 300 people who had voted for surrender gathered at the emergency shuttle bay. The captain met them there personally. He shook hands with each person as they boarded the shuttles. No judgment, no anger. They had made their choice, and he respected it. Head for the Zelthian fleet, he told them. Surrender to them. Tell them where we crashed. They'll probably come after us anyway, but you might save some time. An older man paused at the shuttle door. What are you going to do? You can't fight them on the ground with no weapons. The captain smiled. We're human. We'll figure something out. The shuttles launched and flew up out of the canyon. heading toward the Zelthian fleet with white flags of surrender painted on their hulls. The captain watched them go, then turned back to the remaining 1,700 colonists. "All right, people, here's the situation. We're stuck on a moon with no power, no working ship, and an enemy fleet about to land on our heads. The good news is we have a whole ship full of supplies, some very smart people, and about 2 hours before the Zelthians find us." He pulled up a map of the canyon on a portable screen. This canyon is 10 kilometers long and full of caves and side passages. The Zelthians will have to come down here to get us because their big ships can't fit. That means they'll be on our ground, in close quarters, fighting on our terms. "We're not soldiers," someone protested. "No," the captain agreed. "But we're colonists. We came out here to build a new world on a planet we've never seen. We brought tools and equipment and knowledge. Now we're going to use all of that to build something else. A defense that will make the Zelthians wish they'd never attacked us." The engineering team started pulling apart non-essential ship systems for materials. The science team analyzed the canyon geology and found weaknesses in the rock walls. The teachers organized supply chains and communications networks. Even the children helped, carrying messages and organizing equipment. The doctors set up a proper medical center in one of the larger caves, with real beds and surgical equipment brought down from the ship. She knew they would need it before this was over. The captain coordinated everything from a central cave that became their command post. He divided the 1,700 people into teams based on their skills. Engineers became trap builders. Scientists became tactical analysts. Farmers became logistics experts. Everyone had a role, and everyone understood the stakes. 2 hours after the crash, Zelthian landing craft appeared in the sky above the canyon. 6 ships, each carrying 200 soldiers. Elite troops with advanced weapons and armor. They landed at the canyon entrance in a textbook military formation, ready to sweep through and capture the surviving humans. They found an empty colony ship and no sign of the colonists. The Zelthian ground commander ordered his troops to spread out and search the caves. He expected to find scared civilians hiding in the dark, ready to surrender the moment they saw real soldiers. What he found instead was something no Zelthian had ever encountered before. What he found was 2,000 years of human history condensed into 2 hours of desperate preparation. What he found was a species that had survived everything Earth could throw at them by learning to turn any environment into a fortress. The first squad of Zelthian soldiers entered a cave system and triggered a collapse that buried them under tons of rock. The second squad tried a different passage and walked into a trap made from ship components that filled the tunnel with flames. The third squad made it deeper, into the cave network before running into barricades, made from cargo containers and mining equipment. Behind those barricades stood human colonists with improvised weapons and absolute determination. The ground commander realized with growing horror that he wasn't hunting frightened civilians. He was fighting a prepared enemy on terrain they had already claimed as their own. The battle for the canyon lasted 3 days. The Zelthian ground commander had expected a quick victory, maybe a few hours to round up scattered colonists and secure the area. Instead, he found himself fighting for every meter of ground against an enemy that refused to follow any logical rules of warfare. The humans had turned the entire canyon system into a maze of traps and ambush points. They used the ship's construction equipment to create false walls and hidden passages. They rigged cargo containers to collapse tunnels. They even used the colony's farming equipment, somehow turning irrigation systems into weapons that sprayed boiling water at advancing soldiers. But the most frustrating thing for the Zelthian commander was how the humans fought. They didn't hold static positions like proper soldiers. They didn't try to face the Zelthians in direct combat where superior weapons and armor would guarantee victory. Instead, they hit and ran, appearing from unexpected angles, attacking weak points, then vanishing back into the cave network before reinforcements could arrive. The engineer teams had built dozens of hidden routes through the canyon walls, using mining charges from the colony equipment to blast new tunnels that didn't show up on Zelthian scanners. The colonists moved through these passages like ghosts, always one step ahead of the enemy. On the second day, the Zelthian commander called for more troops. His pride was hurt now. He had started this battle with 1,200 elite soldiers against 1,700 civilians. He should have won in hours. Instead, he was requesting reinforcements and explaining to his superiors why untrained humans were beating his best troops. The Zelthian fleet commander was not sympathetic. He sent down 2,000 more soldiers and message that said the ground commander should finish this quickly or start looking for a new career. The captain watched the new landing craft arrive from his command cave. His tactical team had been tracking enemy movements using sensors salvaged from the ship. He saw the massive reinforcement and knew the situation had changed. They couldn't keep running and hiding forever. Eventually, the numbers would catch up to them. "We need to change tactics," he told his officers. "We've been fighting to survive. Now we need to fight to win." "Win?" The first officer looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Captain, we're colonists with improvised weapons fighting against 3,000 trained soldiers. We can't win. We can just hold out and hope for rescue." "No rescue is coming," the captain said flatly. "We're 3 months from the nearest human outpost. By the time help arrives, this will be long over. We win here or we don't win at all." He pulled up the tactical display. The Zelthians have a weakness. They're used to fighting civilized wars against civilized enemies. Everyone in the galaxy follows the same basic rules. Form lines, exchange fire. One side surrenders when the losses get too high. They expect us to act the same way, and we're not going to? The doctor asked. She had joined the command meetings after the second day, when casualties started mounting, and she needed to understand the bigger picture. "We're going to act like humans," the captain said. "We're going to do what our ancestors did when they were outgunned and outnumbered. We're going to make this so costly, so painful, so absolutely miserable that the Zelthians decide we're not worth the trouble." Over the next 12 hours, the captain's plan took shape. The colonists stopped trying to defend the entire canyon system. Instead, they concentrated their forces in one section, the deepest and most defensible part of the caves. They collapsed tunnels behind them, destroying their own escape routes to make the Zelthians think they were trapped and desperate. The Zelthian commander saw the humans retreating and consolidating. He thought they were finally breaking, finally accepting that defeat was inevitable. He ordered a major assault, throwing most of his forces at the human position in one overwhelming push. The assault hit the human barricades like a hammer. The fighting was brutal and close, exactly what the captain had wanted. In narrow tunnels and dark caves, the Zelthian advantages in weapons and armor meant less. It came down to determination and will, and in that contest, humans had never lost. The colonist who had been a teacher led a team that held a critical choke point for 6 hours straight. The farmer who had worried about his crops fought with mining tools and ship components until his hands bled. The old man who had boarded the surrender shuttle but changed his mind at the last moment became a hero by collapsing a tunnel at exactly the right moment to trap an entire enemy squad. But the captain's real plan wasn't about winning the ground battle. While the Zelthians focused all their attention on the cave system, a small team of engineers and programmers had been working on something else entirely. They had taken the colony ship's communication array, still partially functional despite the damage, and combined it with every power source they could salvage. On the third day of the battle, while Zelthian soldiers and human colonists fought in the caves below, that team activated their creation. A massive burst of energy shot up from the canyon, a distress signal amplified to ridiculous levels. It screamed across every communication frequency used by every species in the galaxy. The message was simple, and it repeated endlessly. Human colony under attack. Civilian ship destroyed. Thousands of families fighting for survival. Send help. The signal was so strong it reached dozens of nearby systems. Trade ships picked it up. Military patrols heard it. Even the Zelthian fleet in orbit couldn't block it. Within hours, the message was being relayed across the galactic communication network. The Zelthian ground commander learned about the signal from his fleet commander, who was screaming in rage over the secure channel. The humans had just announced to the entire galaxy that the mighty Zelthian Empire was attacking civilian colonists and struggling to defeat them. It was a public relations disaster. The Zelthians prided themselves on being civilized conquerors. They followed the rules of war, treated prisoners well, and maintained their reputation as honorable if harsh. Now the whole galaxy was hearing that they had destroyed a colony ship and spent 3 days trying to kill families in caves. The fleet commander ordered an immediate withdrawal. The ground troops pulled back to their landing craft within the hour. The Zelthian ships left orbit and jumped to faster-than-light speed before any other vessels could arrive to investigate. In the canyon, the humans emerged from their caves cautiously, hardly believing the enemy had really left. They had won, not through superior force or better weapons, but by making the cost of victory higher than the Zelthians were willing to pay. By being stubborn, creative, and absolutely refusing to surrender, even when surrender made perfect sense. The captain stood at the canyon entrance watching the sky. His uniform was torn and dirty. His face was covered in dust and dried blood. It looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. The first officer stood beside him. "They'll be back eventually. We can't hold this moon forever." "We won't have to," the captain said. He pointed at the sky where new ships were appearing, attracted by the distress signal. "Help is coming. The galaxy heard us fighting, and they're curious. They want to see the humans who fought off the Zelthians with improvised weapons and farming equipment. Will they actually help us?" "Some will," the captain said. "Others will just watch. But that's enough. The Zelthians can't attack us again without the whole galaxy watching. We bought ourselves protection by refusing to die quietly." The first ship to arrive was a Krell merchant vessel. The Krell were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, known for their strict neutrality and careful observation of all conflicts. They didn't offer military aid, but they did bring medical supplies and food. More importantly, they brought news. The human distress signal had reached Earth and the other human colonies. A relief fleet was already on its way, estimated arrival in 4 weeks. The Krell captain, a dignified being with silver scales and knowing eyes, asked permission to document the battle site. He wanted to record what had happened here for the Krell historical archives. The captain gave permission and personally guided the Krell through the canyon. He showed them the improvised defenses, the collapsed tunnels, the barricades made from cargo containers and hope. The Krell captain took careful notes and many recordings. "Remarkable," the Krell said at one point, examining a trap made from ship components and mining equipment. "Your people had no military training?" "None," the captain confirmed. "Teachers, engineers, farmers, families. Just colonists trying to reach a new world. And yet you held against elite Zelthian troops for 3 days." The Krell's expression was unreadable, but his tone held respect. "We have seen the Zelthians conquer established military positions in less time. How did civilians accomplish this?" The captain thought about his answer carefully. "We're human. We don't know when to quit. More ships arrived over the following days. Some brought supplies. Others came just to observe. A small science vessel from the Threen Collective sent researchers who wanted to study human tactics and strategy. They interviewed the colonists, took measurements of the canyon defenses, and recorded everything in meticulous detail. One of the Threen researchers, a being that looked like a walking crystal sculpture, approached the captain with what seemed like genuine confusion. Your people suffered significant casualties. 37 dead, over 200 injured. Why didn't you surrender when the cost became so high? Surrender to what? The captain asked. The Zelthians wanted to take our ship, our supplies, our colony rights. If we surrendered, we would have lost everything we came here for. 37 people died, but 1,700 survived to build the colony they dreamed of. That's not defeat. That's victory. The Threen researcher recorded this answer with careful attention. The captain suspected it would appear in academic papers across the galaxy. Humans were becoming known as the species that didn't understand the mathematics of acceptable losses. 2 weeks after the battle ended, a new ship from the Galactic Broadcasting Network arrived. They wanted to do a story about the battle, to interview survivors and show the galaxy what had happened. The captain agreed, understanding that publicity was now their best defense. The broadcast went out across hundreds of worlds. It showed the damaged colony ship, the canyon defenses, and interviews with colonists who explained in simple words why they had chosen to fight. One woman, holding her young daughter, said something that resonated across species boundaries. We came here to build a future. We weren't going to let anyone take that away. The broadcast also included footage from the Zelthian side. Someone, probably a Zelthian soldier unhappy with how the battle had been conducted, had leaked combat recordings. The galaxy watched Zelthian troops, trained and equipped with the best weapons in known space, struggling to advance against civilians with improvised defenses. The Zelthian Empire issued a formal statement claiming the engagement had been a legitimate military action against a vessel that had entered restricted space. They said the humans had fired first, that the colony ship had been a military vessel in disguise, that everything they did was justified under galactic law. Nobody believed them. The evidence was too clear. The destroyed colony ship obviously wasn't military. The colonists obviously weren't soldiers. The Zelthians had attacked civilians and then lost the ground battle against those same civilians. The reputation damage to the Zelthian Empire was severe and lasting. Other species who had considered surrendering to Zelthian demands suddenly found new courage. If humans could fight back and win, maybe they could too. Several small conflicts that the Zelthians had been winning suddenly became much more complicated. The human relief fleet arrived exactly 4 weeks after the battle. 6 military ships and 3 colony support vessels, carrying supplies, construction equipment, and replacement personnel for those who had died. The fleet admiral met with the captain on the canyon floor, looking around at the makeshift defenses with professional interest. Hell of a thing you did here, the admiral said. Command is already analyzing your tactics for the military academies, fighting off a superior force with improvised weapons in unfamiliar terrain. It's going to be studied for generations. It was nothing special, the captain said tiredly. We just did what needed to be done. That's what makes it special, the admiral replied. Every other species in the galaxy knows when they're beaten. They surrender, negotiate, accept their losses. Humans keep fighting. We always have. That's both our greatest strength and our biggest problem. The admiral's ships helped restore the colony ship to working condition. It took 3 months of intensive repairs, but eventually the vessel was spaceworthy again. The colonists voted on whether to continue to their original destination or return to human space. The vote wasn't close. 1,600 people chose to continue. Only 100, mostly those who had lost family members in the battle, decided to go home. They had come this far and sacrificed too much to turn back now. The captain stayed with the ship. His daughter asked him once why he didn't retire, why he didn't go back to Earth and rest after everything that had happened. He told her that he had a colony to deliver to their new world, and he always finished his missions. The colony ship arrived at its destination 6 weeks later. The planet was everything they had hoped for. Green oceans, purple forests, mountains that reached into pink skies. A whole world waiting for them to build something new. They named the first settlement 37, after the people who had died defending the colony's future. Every building in that settlement was marked with a small plaque that read, "They never surrendered." The captain lived to see the colony grow to 50,000 people. He watched his daughter grow up and have children of her own. He saw the farms flourish and the cities rise. He was 97 when he died, surrounded by family in a world that existed because 1,700 people had refused to accept defeat. The galaxy never forgot the Battle of the Canyon. It became a reference point, a story that other species told when they needed examples of human stubbornness and determination. Military academies studied it. Historians wrote about it. Politicians referenced it in speeches about courage and persistence. But for the colonists who had lived through it, the battle was just the beginning of their story. They had come to build a new world, and they had let nothing stop them. Not the Zelthians, not impossible odds, not fear or pain or loss. They were human, and humans never surrendered. Against all odds, against every logical argument, against the advice of every sensible voice in the galaxy, they refused to give up. And somehow, impossibly, that had been enough. The colony thrived for centuries, growing into one of humanity's most successful outposts. And in the central square of every city, town, and settlement on that world, there stood a monument. It showed a canyon with caves and barricades, and above it, words that every child learned from the moment they could read. We came here to build a future. We weren't going to let anyone take that away. That was the human story in 4 simple sentences. Not superior weapons or better technology. Just the absolute, stubborn, irrational refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy was still learning what that meant, still trying to understand how a species so new and relatively weak could punch so far above their weight. The answer was always the same. Humans didn't quit. Not ever. Not when it mattered. And that simple fact changed everything.